Hey everyone, my name is WyrmsEye and I welcome you back to another episode of the Battlespot Factory, our VGC Battlespot series. So today is Thursday and a very special day for me as it is my birthday. Yes, another year older, arguably another year wiser, and certainly another year closer to being called a has-been, but we will forget about that as we jump onto the ladder here with this Gravity Hypnosis team that we have been using. This will be our penultimate episode with the team. Still looking at ideas that I want to take forward into next week's episodes, as well as looking into teams for the International Challenge. Speaking of which, the sign-ups for the International Challenge go on until for about another few hours after this video goes live, so if you are interested in the Mega Stones that are on offer, which are for the free Hoenn starters, do check them out, as we find an Italian Vito VGC with a rating of 1748 to start us off. And it is a QR code team for I think what is the first time that we've ever encountered on the channel, with a team of Kartana, Tapu Fini, Arcanine, Porygon Z, Gastrodon and the Alolan Muck. So the name is very familiar. I probably will find out later on who this is, but it is a very scary team. It does look like something that has had recent success. I can't pinpoint exactly where it is, but we do see the Kartana, Fini, Arcanine core, and there is also the Porygon Z. Does threaten with the Z conversion option that it may have. And we also have to be careful of the Alolan Muck. It is something that we've noted down in a few episodes previously, that it is a big threat for our team. So how do we want to start here then? Because it is actually a very difficult opener to deal with. I feel like there's a lot of merit going Arcanine and Tapu Bulu here. With the Persian, and I think the Nihilego could be useful here as well. Garchomp could have also been an option in lieu of the Nihilego, but with it being scarfed, it does mean that we get locked into some difficult situations. So I do want to not consider that. I think the Clefairy isn't necessary in this matchup. I don't think we can get the gravity off, and apart from that, it's not going to provide much help aside from follow me opportunities. So it is something that we'll have to deal with here, but our opponent does lead with the Alolan Muck and the Porygon Z, as we do lead off with our Arcanine and Tapu Bulu. So Bulu is very much threatened at this stage of the game with a Poison Jab from the Alolan Muck, and the Porygon Z is relatively free to go for a move. Probably could opt for the Z conversion, could also carry Trick Room as well. That would be a very sensible option by my opponent's choice of move. How do I want to play this? I think I want to Snarl here, and I am going to protect the Tapu Bulu. I don't think this is the best play, but I really do want to see what this Porygon Z will actually go for. As you'll have to apologise for the sound difficulties that I'm having, as the Arcanine actually faints to a Hyper Beam, unfortunately. So most likely showing that this is actually a Choice Specs variant. And that does pose some difficulties, because now we're in a really bad situation. Losing Arcanine there is actually a major problem for us. Could go into Persian here, attempt to fake out the Muck and go for some sort of move onto the Porygon Z here. Which I do think is probably going to be my best bet. And I may have to be playing on the Hypnosis here as well, which could be a major problem. I'm actually going to Bloom Doom it straight away. So the Persian does get its Fake Out off into the Alolan Muck. Porygon Z obviously recharging, but we are going to get our Bloom Doom off. We'll KO the Porygon Z here, but I think the damage has already been done by losing the Arcanine so early, and it's something that we should have considered. The Porygon Z does have a very high special attack stat, and is naturally decently fast. I think it's a base 95, so it is something that we should have considered, but nevertheless, we will take down the Porygon Z, and we'll see what my opponent wants to bring in for his next Pokemon. Probably the Arcanine, if I was to hazard a guess, but there's any number of things. Yeah, we do see the Arcanine here though. So it does get an Intimidate off onto the Persian and onto the Tapu Bulu there. Not a great loss, all things considered, as the Persian doesn't need to rely on the Intimidate. I do think we need to switch out the Bulu here. So foul playing into the Arcanine is relatively safe. I think we can switch in Nihilego in lieu of the Tapu Bulu. My opponent's probably going to go for a Flare Blitz into the Persian and a Poison Jab into what is now the Nihilego. That would be the safest play for them to make. So we see the foul play does a lot of damage off of a critical hit. No berry either, which is something that is worth taking note of, as the Arcanine goes down to recoil, so that could have been a choice banded Arcanine as well. As the Muck actually goes for a knockoff into the Persian, does mean that our Mega Berry is knocked off here, but we have claimed a knockout that I don't think we were expecting at this stage. The critical hit did do us a lot of favours there, thankfully, so we will see what my opponent's last Pokemon is, and it's the Gastrodon. So we now have a very good win condition on the table. Gastrodon is not going to appreciate taking anything from the Tapu Bulu, and that's something we can use to our advantage if we can knock out the Alolan Muck. So do I go for a Blind Hypnosis or do I go for the Parting Shot here? I think I go for the Parting Shot. And I also go for the Power Gem into that slot as well. I am imagining the Muck may opt to Protect, but it actually does not. So we will get the Parting Shot off. Muck's attack is now down to -2, which is something we can be happy with. And we can bring in the Tapu Bulu here on this slot. Most likely we're going to see a Scald from the Gastrodon into what was the Persian, and could see a knockoff onto the Nihilego here. So Muck does knock off onto the Nihilego, does knock off our Life Orb, and we do see the Scald come out, actually targeting down the Nihilego here, and picks up the knockout. Still not out of contention here though. Okay. I would imagine that the Gastrodon would want to protect here. It doesn't really want to take whatever the Bulu may have, and the Muck, it would actually make sense if our opponent double protected here. So I'm going to superpower. Ooh, do I want to superpower? I think I have to actually, to stand any chance of removing the Muck from play. So we do see that the Gastrodon does protect here. Will the Muck follow suit? The Muck does not follow suit. Is this going to proc the berry? No, that's good. So Muck is taken down to around about 15% health, but will activate its gluttony ability, so the berry will put it back up to round about the same amount that we took it down to, unfortunately, but it's not a terrible loss though. The grassy terrain also goes down, which is a bit of a difficulty. Now I think we do need to go for the blind hypnosis, because if we can hypnosis the Muck, it gives our Bulu additional turns to deal the required damage into, say, the Gastrodon slot, and it would also buy us some more time. But I am going to Horn Leech into the Gastrodon, and I am going to go for this hypnosis. If we connect, we're in a good spot. And that is brilliant stuff to see. So Tapu Bulu's Horn Leech. We probably won't knock out this Gastrodon. Getting very close though. Close, a lot closer than I was expecting. And revealing that it has a citrus berry. Muck takes its turn of sleep. Gastrodon, will it go for an Ice Beam into the Tapu Bulu? No freeze. Can we get the knockout with foul play from this range on the Gastrodon? This is dangerous. I feel like you have to protect the Gastrodon here. I am taking a big risk here by going for the foul play onto the Gastrodon, and the Gastrodon does not protect either, which is going to be probably to our disadvantage now, as we will lose most likely the Tapu Bulu here. So we do see the Gastrodon go for the Ice Beam into the Tapu Bulu. So that was a bit of a foolish play, but we banked on the fact that given Gastrodon had shown Protect, it would make more sense to stall out a turn of the sleep timer, which is why I thought that move made more sense in the long run. But Persian could still possibly clutch this out at the very end. Will take a lot of punishment here though. So we do manage to drop the Gastrodon, but Muck only needs to get a poison here and the game will be over, so... And even so, that's still doing quite a significant amount of damage, and given that we've used Parting Shot, our foul plays are actually weaker now, so we have lost this one, unfortunately. No poison though. It's a good game to my opponent there. Not protecting the Gastrodon actually proved to be the winning move there. Banking off of our need to deal with the muck. We did play a lot riskily, a bit riskier there, because we kind of assumed that the Persian would get the knockout with foul play onto the Gastrodon, but Gastrodon is very bulky, as people will know, and the superpower that we did put into the muck originally did mean that we took ourselves out of clean KO range onto the Gastrodon. So there are definitely things that we could have done better at that game. It is unfortunate, but not going for the protect on the Gastrodon there really did put my opponent well in the driving seat right at the end there. We had an opportunity. We did have to play for a hypnosis hit at 60%, which we did get, so we bought ourselves some time. But not getting rid of the Gastrodon when we could have quite easily was our undoing, unfortunately. So not a good way to start the episode, but we did get really close, and it was against a very highly rated opponent as well, so we can take some solace from that we did push them really close. But we will try and find another opponent. So we are at 1655 now. And yes, as I said, this is going to be our penultimate run with this team. We'll have another episode out on Sunday to round off with this team, hopefully finish off very well, as we find a opponent from Japan with a rating of 1563, running a team of Golduck, Pelipper, Tapu Lele, Drifblim, Crocodile and Magnezone. So, Double Ducks, Lele Drifblim core. Good steel type, and I am very scared of this matchup. Very, very scared. And there's not much I'm going to be able to do about it to slow it down. I could lead Persian Tapu Bulu here. That would cover most of my options. And I think I like that as well. Nihilego I think is going to be very good for dealing with the Drifblim, the Lele, the Pelipper to a certain extent. And then my last... I think I actually want the Garchomp here, rather than the Arcanine. Magnezone I can obviously deal with very easily with the Garchomp with the potential Earthquake. I will have to be somewhat careful to deal the damage with Earthquake, because I will need a protecting partner, or indeed the Persian out at the same time to do the best amount of damage and not take too much to my own self. I've also got to be considerate of the grassy terrain as well in that case. But we do see Golduck and Pelipper lead out for my opponent, with Alolan Persian and Tapu Bulu on my side of the field. So there are a couple of things straight away that are going to be really dangerous for my side of the field. If my opponent chooses to just double protect, it would block the fake out, and it would mean that my Bulu would be under some significant threat. Regardless though, I am going to go straight for the Bloom Boom into the Golduck here. As we see, the Pelipper withdraw in favour of the Tapu Lele, which suggests to me that the Golduck is going for a Hydro Vortex now into the Persian slots. Let's see. No, the Golduck just going for a Scald actually. Onto the Bulu. not picking up the burn though, which is really good for us. And we will get this Bloom Doom off, which is going to be very nice for us to remove the Golduck from play. It's one of his main sweepers, and most likely the only thing on his team that has a Z move that is likely to use it. As you can see, massive amounts of damage. Bulu does knock out the Golduck, one hit, and we're now in a relatively nice position once again. So my opponent could elect to bring back out the Pelipper and try to set up the Tailwind, which wouldn't be the worst idea to do. But we actually see the Drifblim hit the field. So actually not a bad play by my opponent there. Drifblim will get the Tailwind up relatively risk-free. And I don't really have a very good way of stopping the Lele. My best hope is that I can get a parting shot off onto the Lele right now. And I'm actually going to go for a Horn Leech into it as well. I'm not too worried if the Bulu actually goes down at this very point, as we do see the Protect on the Lele, so Drifblim does get its Tailwind up, and that will mean that our Persian is under some significant threat. And there is also the chance that we could be Will-O-Wisped as well on the Tapu Bulu with the Drifblim, which wouldn't be the worst case scenario for my opponents. I'm going to switch Nihilego in for the Persian. I am going to now try and Leech Seed the Tapu Lele. At this moment, we're going to want to try and actually stall out the Tailwind turns as best we can, as the Drifblim does go for a Shadow Ball, probably onto the Tapu Bulu, as we do see. Tapu Lele opts to Dazzling Gleam rather than go for a Moonblast or any sort of direct attack onto the Nihilego, which is unfortunate, as the Tapu Lele does take a recoil. From the Life Orb. Now most Lele are quite slow, so I am hoping, praying, that Garchomp with its Scarf is going to outspeed the Lele. It all depends on what amount of investment the Lele actually has. I mean, there is a certain element of does it go for a Psychic, does it go for a Dazzling Gleam here? Does it go for a Moonblast even? I think if we Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Lele, and I just want to Rock Slide at this point, any damage that we do get off with the Garchomp would be significant. Drifblim does go for a Will-O-Wisp though into the Garchomp slot. Will cut our attack power in half. But at this moment in time, Garchomp is mostly here to provide some sort of assistance, but we also do see that my opponent's Lele is faster than the Garchomp outside of Tailwind. In Tailwind. Less than ideal now. We do get a critical hit on the Lele. But at this stage, I think we've already got a major problem on our hands. And we have probably lost this game here. Unless we can clutch out a Hypnosis and survive the Dazzling Gleam from the Lele. Drifblim does go for the Shadow Ball, actually onto the Persian slot here, so probably a very good target here. Tapu Lele does go for the Dazzling Gleam. Will either of these Pokemon survive? The Garchomp does, but at this point it's a wasted hope. Tapu Lele also avoids the Rock Slide, so we are going to be taking a double loss here in this episode, unless we can somehow just flinch out from here. But even the burn is going to be taking us out before I think we can even get the Pelipper in the back. So I didn't play that game at all well once the Lele and Drifblim hit the field, which was really poor on my end. So we will just play this out, see what we can get from this, but this stage I think the Lele's already got us. Yeah, and it shows Moonblast as its 4th move. So good game to my opponent there, played very well. And really, the Tailwind put us back quite a significant amount. We don't really have any speed control optional on this team, which is a big oversight and something that we would have to consider amending if we were going to go forward looking at this team a little bit further. Again, we could have tried to stall as best as we could with the Nihilego by protecting and just continuing with the Rock Slide from the Garchomp and wait for an available moment where we could actually get the Nihilego to attack more freely. But I think by that point we would have needed a double protect, so we kind of lost right there at the Tailwind turn. Once the Tailwind went up, we really didn't have a very good way of dealing with what our opponent had out on the field, let alone what was in the back as well with the Pelipper, which would have also had a good Tailwind option to go for. So we do take 2 losses in this episode, so it is a shame on my birthday to take those losses, but hopefully we will bounce back on the Sunday, and over the International Challenge I'll be recording the game, so hopefully I'll be using up my bad luck from now and sort of getting all the good rolls in the International Challenge. But until Sunday, guys, I do wish you the very best for your Thursday evenings and over the coming weekend. If you do like to comment, subscribe or like down below, I would really appreciate it. Your feedback and help is always gratefully appreciated, no matter what it is. But until next time, I will see you guys then. Bye bye for now.